Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's a couple minutes past 11, so I want to welcome the people that have logged on. Appreciate you joining us this Saturday morning. Today we're going to talk about property management. I'm going to go through some of the things that I do to manage the properties I have, some of the things that you can do to self-manage, and then we'll talk a little bit about the property management business, the business of hiring a property manager, what they do, what they charge, and the things that you can consider or you should consider when hiring a property manager. So first, like I said, the first part of this webinar, I would say 75% of it is what is entailed. What does it take to get a good tenant in there? What are you looking at when you're finding a good tenant or searching for a good tenant? What are the things that you want to put in your lease? How do you structure your lease? Move in, move out forms, different things like that. So as you go through, or as we go through, if you have any questions, please enter your questions into the right-hand side. There is a question box right on the right-hand side of the screen, and I'll have periodic breaks where I can stop and answer your questions as we move along. So again, thanks for joining us this Saturday morning. Hopefully I can answer a bunch of your questions. Hopefully I can. The purpose of this webinar was really to shake the fear out of some people. The main thing that, the main reason that I hear that people do not get into the rental business itself is because of the property management side. They fear having to deal with people, having to deal with legal obligations of being a landlord, some of the tax obligations of being a landlord. So we're going to go over a lot of those different things and try to simplify it as much as possible for you. So before we get started, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Willie Mandrell. For the people I have not or I have yet to meet, a couple of things about me. I am a real estate investor myself. I a buy and hold investor. I've done a couple flips, couple condo conversions in the past, but my primary focus is on the buy and hold business. A couple properties here where I'm located in Dorchester. I personally live in Quincy. I'm also a broker. The Mandrell Company, which is sponsoring today's webinar, is a residential and commercial real estate brokerage. We help and assist people with filling their vacant units, finding rentals, occasionally a sale if it need be, and then a small amount of property management stuff as well. And then I'm also an organizer. I'm the organizer of this group, Boston Wealth Builders. We are proud to say that the group has been going strong for just over 3 years now, roughly 1,000 members in the group. So if you're new, if this is one of your first webinars, or if you're hopping on and you're new to the group, I definitely would encourage you to engage with some of the members that are on the platform. Again, this is roughly 1,000 members in the group right now, local Boston, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire real estate investors, all looking to grow their portfolio, to get to learn a little bit more. Some of them are just getting started. Many of our members are just getting started, but we have some very experienced guys and girls in the group as well. And I would definitely encourage you to reach out to some of the members that live close to you, or that you're meeting at some of these networking events that you go to, and really try to schedule a lunch, sit down, and pick their brain and share a little bit about your experience as well. So that's me in a nutshell: investor, broker, organizer. So let's move on. Let's get right into it. And again, we just had a few more people hop on. As we go along, I'm going to talk a little bit about the self-managed side. What are the things that you're going to consider if you're running a property management, from forms to legals to taxes to everything else? If you have questions, if I breeze through something too quickly, please use that question box on the side, and I have periodic places where I'm going to stop. Cyrus, yes. Actually left, yes, you can see the full screen. Excellent, beautiful. Thank you guys for filling me in on that. Okay, let's get right into it. So first, let's go over a really brief overview of a couple of things that I think, or I would like you to think about if you're a couple of people. I recognize the names on the webinar just recently became landlords. Congratulations to you. Some of the things that I would like you to think about just getting started. 8 tools every small landlord needs. Let's go down the list, and as we go through the webinar, I'm going to circle back around and I'll tell you exactly where these things fit in and why they're so important, and we'll kind of touch upon them as we go through as well. So number 1, printer, scanner, fax machine. I think every little small home office needs it. As you start to collect applications, as you start to draft leases with your tenants, as you start to make purchases as a landlord and collect those receipts, you need a really organized method, especially if you plan on being in the business for the long haul. Things happen, water damage, fire damage, and you really want to be able to maintain these things long term. So I would highly suggest that you go out and invest in $100 HP scanner. I don't know if that's HP is the best brand out there, but they range from $75 to $100. Little home office scanner. Printer fax, scan all your receipts, scan all your leases, scan all your applications, and keep that stuff in tenant files. You're going to have mortgage documents. You're going to have all these stuff. So instead of using your kitchen table or wherever you might put your do your work, keep those things organized as possible, because down the road you will need to pull them up and you want to be able to access them pretty quickly. File cabinet for the exact same reason. You're going to have the paper version, and now you have a backup scan version. If something happens and your computer crashes, then you have the paper version to help you out. A toilet auger. For those of you who don't know what a toilet auger is, very simple tool. It costs about $30 at Home Depot, and as the screen says, it will save you thousands of dollars over the years. Mine has. I have a $30 toilet auger at every single one of the properties that I own, and basically what it is, let's put it this way: there's sink augers, there's tub augers. Your tenant's tub clogs, not necessarily an emergency. It can take something needs to be handled, but sink clogs, same thing. Toilet clogs, that's an emergency. That's something that needs to be handled immediately. And a plumber will charge you $150, and depending on whether he or she is busy or not, $200 to come out to the property, unclog that toilet. That might take them 3 minutes. A toilet auger is a very simple device. You stick it into the base of the toilet and basically pushes down whatever's caught in there further down into the sewer pipe. Again, it takes you 2 minutes, very easy to use, and it will save you thousands of dollars. And I think that is one of the things that if I was starting or buying my first property today, I would definitely have that in the building and easily accessible. So a good drill set. Tons of things. You don't have to be a handyman or handywoman. You just need a good, please don't buy Black & Decker, anything that's super cheap. You want something, you want to go out and spend $100 on a DeWalt drill set. It's just, you don't have to be super handy. It's just something that's going to be needed around the house so often, just to tighten things up, loosen things up, whatever it may be. It's going to come into play a ton. Lock boxes at each property. So a lock box is basically just a really simple device. When I got into the business, I had the janitor thing going. When I had 26 keys, one for each apartment, one for the basement, one for the storage units, the next building, my house, the cars. To eliminate that, basically what I do now is there's a lockbox on each one of the basement doors. There's a code for the lockbox, and it allows me to say, anytime if I'm out, I don't need to, did I remember the keys at the house, or the keys over here? I know that the keys are on that basement door, and I can go access them and get into the basement or each one of the units if there's an emergency or if I need to very quickly. The other thing the lockbox allows you to do is if you're sending over a contractor or a plumber needs access to the building, or anybody else that needs access, there's somebody helping you with something, now you can give them the code and they can access that property without you having to be there all the time as well. So very helpful tool. Operating and reserve bank accounts. We're going to talk a little bit more about taxes, collecting rents, handling your expenses, but having and again, if you live in the building, if it's 2-family, 3-family, and 4-family, you live there, that's something different. Maybe and it's something you probably want to talk to your CPA about, or whoever does your taxes. Maybe you combine all the income and the expenses and pay out of one account. If you're at a position where you have your own home and you own another rental property, I would highly advise you to separate your personal expenses from the business expenses. You as a landlord are a business owner now, and you want to make sure that you're going out and you're opening up a whatever it may be, 123 Main Street account at Bank of America, Citizens Bank, whatever it may be, depositing your income there, paying your expenses out of those accounts, to separate. When it comes down to tax time and comes down to determining whether your rentals are profitable or not, it's going to be a huge upside for you to be able to have all those expenses, income and expenses, separated completely. And as soon as we talk about income and expenses, I'll give you a couple other reasons why having an operating account for yourself is so important. A separate credit card for your rentals for the same reason. If your hot water tank goes and you need to charge $500 to $1,000 on a credit card, I would separate those expenses as much as possible. keep a card, a debit card, a credit card, and an operating and reserve account. Reserve account is, any type of savings you have for that account. You hypothetically, hopefully, what you're doing is you're collecting, hypothetical $4,000. You're paying out $2,500. You have, $1,500 left over. Maybe $500 goes back into the property, and $1,000 every month goes into the reserve account for major expenses. And again, the credit card is the same exact reason. When you're doing your taxes, instead of having all those receipts, you want to keep the receipts as well, but instead of being able to, use an Excel spreadsheet and chat, it's nice to have a nice 12 months worth of statements that you can say, this is everything that was charged or expensed to the rental for that year. And then a contractor list. Just, get some recommendations from, again, members of the group. I can, send you some recommendations if you're local to Boston. Plumber, electrician, handyman, just have those numbers handy. That's even something that I have. I have a little chalkboard in my kitchen, and we keep, the plumber and electrician and his number on there just in case things, happen. The plumbing is going to be your number one expense over the years as you get into it. Most electrical issues are not, how do I put it, urgent. Most handyman issues are not urgent, but the plumber, he comes when, like I said, when they're, or he or she comes when the toilet's backed up, tub's backed up, pipes are leaking, and those things, like I said, you want to keep his or her number readily available. All right, so, and again, we're going to revisit a lot of these different concepts as we go along, but those are 8 tools that I think every small landlord needs right off the top before you get into anything else, before you start worrying about legals and taxes. These are the things that you need to consider. Let's go in a little different direction. Let's talk about mastering your rental market. So let's say you bought your first building, or you're thinking about buying your first building or your first condo rental or whatever it may be, and you are, it's vacant, it came vacant, you closed everything, your excitement, the excitement's there, now you're ready to get these places rented out. So how do you master your rental market? How do you understand exactly what's going on at all times, where your rent should be? What are the things that you should be asking for? So let's go through the list. At what price have similar units rented? That's probably the first thing that you should be thinking about. If you have a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom and you're in Somerville, or if you're in Dorchester, wherever you are, what are comparable units in Somerville renting for? And there's a couple ways you can figure that out. The easiest way to figure that out is talk to your local real estate agent. There are a ton of rentals that are done via MLS. Your local real estate agent can basically, within a couple minutes, download a list of all the transactions that have happened on the rental market within the last 6 months, and email you a PDF. And that gives you a basic idea of addresses, what the landlord was asking for, what they actually got, how long it stayed on the market, and that's going to give you your best idea for what's going on in the neighborhood and what comparable rentals to yours are renting for. The second thing that you can do without a real estate agent is just pretend like you are a tenant. Go out onto Craigslist, go out onto Trulia, go onto Realtor.com and search for a 3-bedroom rental in Somerville. What are landlords asking for? And then, as you're searching, you're also looking for, through the images to see, at this price point and in this neighborhood, do I provide stainless steel? Is it granite countertops? Is carpet or hardwood floors expected? What are the other amenities that come with this rental as well? So you're looking for price, and you're seeing what those landlords are offering or asking for their units, and you're also looking at what are they offering to the tenant for that particular price as well. So 2 things: using your local real estate agent to pull that list, which can be done within a couple minutes and PDF and emailed to you, and then also going out on Craigslist and some of the other rental websites, apartment.com, and seeing and researching, acting as a tenant and searching your neighborhood. And you really should be doing this on a regular basis. I'm going to talk a little bit about why as we go along, but a lot of landlords get caught into the trap of keeping rents low and not understanding they have a tenant, and the tenant's been there for 10 years and they don't ask any questions, so they don't ask any questions of the tenant, and they don't really research their market until they actually have a vacancy, and then they come to find that they're $1,000 below market rent. And some of you may think that I'm exaggerating, but we run into the case all the time where rents are $2,000 and they're still charging $1,000 for the same unit. You've devalued your building and you've lost countless thousands of dollars over the years as well. So you really want to try to keep up with the market, the rental market in your around your rentals as much as possible. Um, excuse me. What are the quality of the finishes and amenities offered as well? So that, again, as you're looking for these rentals, it's not just about the price, but do you need to upgrade your rentals? Do you charge a little bit more for stainless steel appliances and granite countertops and some of the other things, or are you overbuilding for or oversupplying for the neighborhood? If the standard is for mica and fiberglass tub enclosures and carpeting, are you overbuilding, or are you putting too much money into your unit? So understanding the quality finishes, the amenities, and the price is expectation, or excuse me, a requirement. And then what are the expectations for the tenant base in this particular neighborhood? Understanding your tenant base, understanding what type of tenant are you likely to get for this particular unit. Is there public transportation? Does that public transportation go to the colleges? Or is a college student likely to rent your apartment? Is it a family neighborhood? Is it filled with singles and duplexes where there's a school by? Is it most likely a small family that's going to rent your unit? And if so, once you understand your tenant base, what are their expectations? Is in this particular neighborhood, if public transportation is not readily available, or if it's a 10-minute or 15-minute walk, then there should be, I would assume, some type of expectation for parking or there. If for some reason it's in an upscale neighborhood, the expectation, or if there's no laundromat close by, then the expectation is that you may be required to, or you may be asked to put a washer and dryer hookup in the basement or maybe in the unit. So understanding your tenant base and what they're looking for as well. Let's see if there's and again, for those of you that just jumped on, if you have any questions, please throw them in the box to the right where it says questions, and as we take a break, we'll make sure that we get them answered for you. So I don't see anything in there right now, so I'm going to move on, but if you have something, please stick it in there, and I will address it at the next break. So I'm going to move on, and we're going to talk about renting your unit. So you've researched your market, you understand the tenant base, you understand your unit, you understand what similar rentals are renting for. Now let's go out and say we're going to market our unit, and we're going to go out and search for a tenant. So the first thing I'm considering is, what is my ideal tenant? Who am I looking for? Who are the people that are most likely to rent this unit? And the reason I'm thinking about that is because, again, I'm thinking about down the line the things that I'm going to provide, the things that I'm going to require in my lease. I'm thinking about the timetable for these tenants. I'm thinking about a lot of different things. So what is my ideal tenant, and where do I find them? So that's the other thing, is who's your ideal tenant, and if they're college students, are you going to market your rental differently than if it's a local family? If it's a working professional of two, where would you like to put these rentals? Is it Craigslist? Craigslist is probably typically the #1 source, but it may be going down to the college itself if you're local to that, and actually putting an ad with those like I said, the school itself, and actually is trying to get some of those tenants to rent your building. The next thing you want to think about is, what are you collecting from your tenants? As you're putting this apartment out there, you want to have a good idea of what your expectation is. Are you collecting first and last? Are you collecting first in security? Are you collecting first, last, and security? The other thing that you want to consider is, if you are renting your apartment with a realtor, there is most likely going to be a fee associated that the tenant is required to pay as well. So now, considering that, do you want to charge first, last, security, and a fee to a particular tenant? Your hypothetical, if your rental is renting for $1,000, it's $4,000 to move in. Considering that, who is my ideal tenant? Where are they coming from? What resources they have? Does that make sense? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I can tell you from personal experience, I do not charge last month's rent, and we can go into a little bit of why, but I personally look for a first month, a full month security, and then most likely they're going to have to pay a fee. I'm going to most likely hire a real estate agent to do all of the other things that we'll go over, lease drafting and everything else. So they're going to, if my rental's $1,000, they're going to pay $3,000 to get in to the door. Uh, Setting your rental criteria. This is something that you really want to think about. Who am I looking for? So your ideal tenant, who are you looking for? First, last, and security. And then obviously the rental amount that you're asking. And then you really want to think about a credit score. One of the easiest ways that you can get yourself in trouble, and that's the next line down, is make sure you're not discriminating, is having different requirements for different set of people. If one person comes in, you say, I think I can get along with this person, they like the Red Sox, I like the Red Sox, I'm going to be a little bit more lenient on these people versus somebody else that comes in and I don't think I can get along with them. That is discrimination. And as many of you know, landlord tenant law in Massachusetts, leans towards tenants. You want to make sure that you are as careful as possible when you're setting your criteria. You want to make sure that criteria is the standard for every applicant that comes in. So if I want to require a 650 credit score to get into this apartment, then I want to make sure that 650 credit score, that 700 credit score, whatever it is the same requirement across the board. I'm going to talk a little bit about income. Income, you also want to have an income requirement. When I say income, I don't mean a certain dollar figure. I mean a ratio. If your apartment, here's the way I can put this. If your apartment is renting for, let's reverse it, sorry. If your tenant applies for the apartment and their gross income is $1,000 a month, your apartment is renting for $700 a month. They are occupying, or they are consuming 70% of their gross monthly rent to pay your rent, to pay that rent to you. They still have to eat, cable, electricity, gas, transportation. That is a bad situation. They are not going to make it. You really want to, in a perfect world, want to keep your tenant, their gross income needs to be at least double what your rent is. So your rent needs to be at least, or rent needs to be around 50% of what their gross income is for the couple. If it's two incomes, great. If it's one income, whatever the income is, I would probably not consider anyone who is exceeding 50% of that, of that gross rent. And the reason being is exactly what I laid out. When you think about, the fact that if your rent is $1,000, they make $1,000, your rent is $500. They still have to eat. They still have to clothe themselves. They still have to pay for gas and transportation and electricity and Comcast and the cell phone bill. Those things add up. You would think that most people would be cognizant of that and not apply for the apartment, but not everyone is. You as the landlord have to make sure that you're not allowing anyone in that doesn't meet that income requirement. I gave you, and hopefully you can see the attachment. There should be two handouts at the bottom or the right-hand side of your screen. One is property management, the Mandrel Code. It's a PDF copy of the slides that we're presenting today. And the other one is, can I afford to pay my rent? And I think it's an important handout. It basically gives you a PDF that you can supply to your potential tenants, explaining exactly what I'm saying. They actually use a 40% rent to income, but I think in Boston, with the way the rents are, I think 50% is pretty reasonable. And please, like I said, stop me or please ask any questions if this is not entirely straightforward. So make sure you're not discriminating. I'm going to suggest a couple of resources to you. Number one, obviously race, religion, those things. You can't, obviously, put an ad out there looking for young people. Again, you're discriminating against somebody who's a little older. What does young mean? You can't, I think some of these things are obvious to you. Put an ad out, discriminating, saying I want a person of color or not a person of color. It doesn't really matter. So making sure, and again, I'm going to suggest a good resource to you, but making sure that you're not discriminating, I think that's pretty straightforward to most of you. And then the last thing I'm going to think about before I actually put this thing out there is, and what I think where most landlords fall and most deals fall apart once they get a tenant in there, is thinking about the lease clauses that I want. Do I want pets in my unit? And if it is, do I only want dogs, or do I only want cats? And if it's only dogs, what size? If you put no dogs or small dogs, I would go and be a little bit more specific, 15 pounds or under. Satellite TV. And this may seem a little strange to some of you, but if you drive around, Dorchester, Somerville, some of the neighborhoods where these triple deckers are in existence, you might see a 3-family with 10 satellites hanging off the side of the building. I personally do not allow satellite TV in my units because DirecTV comes in, and when a tenant leaves, they don't use the same satellite. They don't remove the satellite. A new tenant comes in, they hang up a new satellite right next to the old one. It boggles my mind why they do that, but that is a fact. And every time they do it, they're drilling holes in the side of your building. They're damaging your siding. It's just not something that's going to cause long-term damage to your building, and it's just not eye appeal. It's not, from a street level, it just looks bad. So that's personally something that I do. Again, it's something to consider. Parking. If you have parking, are you going to keep it for you? Is it for another tenant? Is it available for use? Definitely lay that out before they get in there. Storage use. Tenants, especially if they're going to stay, if they plan on staying for a little while, they're going to ask about storage. Can they use the basement? Do you have a bin or some type of storage area designated for that tenant? Exterior water use. Again, something that people don't think about. I had a two-family rental in Quincy, and there was quite often, my water bill would shoot up, and I wasn't entirely sure why. Stopped by during the day one time, and they had a pretty large pool that was being filled up all over the summer. There were people outside washing their car with the water. If you are a landlord and you're paying for that, you want to limit or put some type of stipulation around the exterior water use in the building. If you're taking a shower, great. You're flushing the toilet, great. I can, as a landlord, would want to limit how many times you're filling up that pool, if at all, and how many car washes you're doing with the water that we're paying for. Keys. Again, people. I'm as I progress in my landlording career or my rental property career, I'm trying to. People lose keys all the time. Tenants lose keys. What is the policy around it? Are you charging to go out and produce other keys? I'm starting to get away from that. I'm starting to use more of a keypad access to buildings. We can talk a little about that later as well. And when will rents increase? If I could take a step back really quickly, one of the most multifamily buildings or rentals are determined often by the amount of rent that they're producing. 2-3 families side by side, 2 triple deckers side by side. One is collecting $4,000 in rent and one is collecting $2,000 in rent. All else being equal, the one that's collecting $4,000 in rent is worth more. When you are being nice, when you are not collecting, when you are not increasing your rents over the years, I get it. I understand that a lot of landlords, they don't bother me, I don't bother them, I want to keep them in place. That only goes so far before you start to decrease the value of your building. As property values increase, as a buyer, I'm going to buy all else being equal, the building that's producing more in rents all day long than yours that's producing less. So you have 2 buildings, everything else being equal, the one that's producing the higher amount of rents is going to be worth more. So you want to make sure that you're systematically increasing your rents, you're paying attention to your market. Why do I say that you want to consider this in the marketing phase? Is you want to really let your tenant know right off the top, so it's not arbitrary. It's not I'm coming to you and saying, in January your rent's going up. I'm going to let you know right off the top, if I can. It's called a rent escalator, that every year your rent is going to go up 3%. You may not want to do it that way. You may want to just say, like I said, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, we're going to reevaluate your rent 3 months before your lease is due every year. But there should be some discussion about rental increases, so it's not, it doesn't come as a shocker later on down the line when you find out that you're $300 or $400 below market. Give me a question. I got a couple of questions, and then I will. Give me 1 second. I'm going to get through the slide, and then I'll answer the next couple of questions. Choosing the right applicant. Do they show enough income? So we talked about that. Do they, please use that handout. You can verify their income by pay stubs or their taxes. If they're self-employed, you want to look at maybe the last year of taxes, the last 2. You're allowed to ask for a pay stub. Do they meet your credit score requirements? If not, then move on. You do not want to change. If you're going to change the requirements, you want to change it for everyone, not just for a particular tenant. Have you verified their employment status? I'm going to collect the pay stub, and then I'm also going to call their employer to make sure that they are still employed in that location. Believe it or not, there are some people that try to, game the system, and you want to be ahead of that. I've had someone come to me and literally fly a legit-looking, pay agreement, pay stub. I called the employer. They hadn't worked there in a couple of weeks, or they had lost their job. Now he or she is trying to apply for an apartment. That's not going to fly. You want to make sure that you're verifying their employment status, and calling their HR department, and just, you don't have to ask too many questions. Basically, all you want to know is that person still employed there? If they're employed there and they're showing you a valid pay stub, you would assume that everything is A-okay there. And have you done a criminal background check? That's the other thing. Doing a criminal background check, I can, like I said, send you a quick resource for that. I think it's $20 to do it, and you want to make sure, please do not skip that step. You want to make sure that the people that you're putting in your apartments have a clean criminal background history. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I do not know entirely where the discrimination line comes in when it comes to criminal background. If they, let's say, for instance, are a arson, can you say that you do not want them into, or you're denying their application because of that? And how many years back does it go? And that's a gray area. And again, I'm going to supply you with a resource before this webinar is over to kind of look up some of that stuff and get a real good grasp on Massachusetts landlord-tenant law. Actually, let me move on. So questions. Would you charge a fee for satellite use? That's a possibility. So, and again, I personally do not like the use of satellites, and the reason I'm going to, explain that a little further is most times they hand you satellite on the 3rd floor or somewhere high off the side of the building. How do I get that down? I need a 30-foot ladder to climb up there. I'm putting, and again, most of these triple deckers are very close to one another. So now I'm putting my ladder at a very steep angle and trying to climb up and take it. I probably would just go against it altogether. The fee would probably not justify them using satellite TV anyhow. So I just would probably get rid of it altogether, or not allow it altogether. Excuse me. Do you send background checks, resources? Please send background checks, resources, reputable, credible, check, landlord. I definitely will. Anyone, I'm going to provide you with my email address at the end of this. Anyone who is on this, I'm going to supply you with a PDF copy, some other handouts. I also have a package of free landlord tenant forms that I'm going to supply you with at the end of this. I'll show you exactly how to get them. And if you do not hear from me, something that I promised today, and it's not you, I'm going to provide you my email address, and I will absolutely send that over. Give me 1 second. What has been your experience with the Boston Housing Authority receiving return phone calls and leaving voicemails? The Boston Housing Authority is a municipal entity, and anytime you're dealing with the city, you're going to have issues. Often, I've had a couple Section 8 tenants, and I assume that that's what this question is leading to. What is your experience with the Boston Housing Authority, BHA, and receiving and returning phone calls? It's been horrible. To be quite frank, most of the time, if I do have a Section 8 tenant, again, I have a couple clients and a couple friends who are landlords, and they also have Section 8 tenants, and a lot of times you have to, unfortunately, actually go to the office to speak to your potential tenant's caseworker directly in order to get anything done. Again, I wish I had a better answer for you, but no, it actually has been horrible. I've had rough experience with them, but that's dealing with any municipality as you go forward.